One power, one power, one power. There's one power invisible, and you see it everywhere and every day. One power indescribable, and you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious until you know the truth, as simple as the love inside of you. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, angels' wings or heaven's door. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? It's the power of the love that lives in you. One power, oh, one power. You see, we speak so many languages, different clothing, different colors, different names. Oh, but different is only dangerous. We forget that our hearts were all the same. We'll remember once we close our eyes to see that such differences were never meant to be. Call it God, call it Spirit, call it Jesus, call it Lord, call it Buddha, Baha'u'llah, Ashar, or heaven's door. It's Mohammed, it's your mind, it's your soul, it's your sign, it's the universe, it's music, Mother Earth, Father Time. But whatever name you give it, it's all one power, can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's the power of the Lord that lives in you. One power, one power, one power, one power. Oh, it's just one power, oh, one power. It's a moment of creation, it's an everlasting peace, it's a freedom of forgiveness, it's a sweetness of release, it's a joy of inspiration, it's the sunshine on your face, it's the birthright of all nations, it's the boundlessness of space, it's the beauty of a baby, the serenity of sleep. It's the anger we abandoned, for it's love that's most deep. It's one power, oh, it's just one power. Oh yes, one power, oh, it's just one power. It's the power of the Lord, lives forever in you and in me. It's the power of the Lord in you and me. One power, oh, one power. It's just one power.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Reverend Damien Cannoot.
I'm so glad you're here. I was telling Stephen Hankey earlier that we have probably 2,000 people that watch weekly, more people online than in here. And I'm so glad I brought up Stephen's name. How did I do that? Stephen is the marketing genius with a team full of people for the brand of DAP Health. And sitting right behind you there. You see him on television, you see him talk about DAP. And he said earlier, it's the easiest job to do because we something in people's lives. Get behind it, just give it that little that it needs. And yesterday, people associated with me, and I say that's Interfaith Ministries Worldwide, and now at Damien ComEd, and just Damien, we donated $1,000 to the AIDS. That's huge. That's great. That's people changing people's lives. Today, my talk is going to be on healing childhood traumas. And I asked that we come early today because I'm going to spend about half an hour talking about me, which is something that I do a lot. All of us want peace. And if I was doing the Miss USA pageant or something, or it was Sandy Bullock, I'd be doing the runway and saying, I want world peace. I want world peace. We all say we want peace. You cannot have peace without having a spiritual component. It is impossible. I asked Fleet to sing this song today because when we say even the word hallelujah, there is a sacred sound. Yahweh, Buddha, Krishna, God, the Ah. And when we do the New Age and we do the meditative Om, the original was Ah, started with an A. When we collectively and energetically say the sound, we create the vibration for the divine to not only be with us, in us, through us, but collectively. And that's when miracles happen as a natural state. Are you following me? Most people die not knowing who they are. Most people die being somebody else. Most people die never fulfilling their sacred contract that they came here for and not knowing what their purpose was being here. Emotional health and spiritual health cannot be separated. It is impossible to know spiritual maturity while remaining emotionally immature. And when I get to the talk, I'll tell you a little bit about the emotional immature. But I put this in your bulletin for you to take home. Emotional, healthy spirituality is about connecting with the inner voice of God, learning how to hear and follow that voice, and do the emotional healing work. It's about making sure that what you hear brings you to your best and highest level. If what you hear is not bringing you to your highest level, pull it out.
Remember, sometimes I talk about from the Genesis Bible where God was walking in the garden and he's calling for Adam. And he said, Adam, 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 where are you? Can't find him. He goes around, he finally sees Adam, and Adam has all this foliage and stuff around him. And he says, Adam, what'd you do here? Adam says, well, I was naked, so I had to cover up. So God says, who told you you were naked? Who? The Godness. God, love, the same word, the same entity. We came from love, we go back to love, we are love. If we're living our authentic selves and not in the ego mind. Our ego mind will tell us we're anything but. And our ego mind is set up for this world, not the reality. The reality is the Godness and the kindness and the love that we share. But my story, we're just going to skate through part of it. Because when I talk about inner healing, most of the time I do a whole weekend workshop with people. And I started this one time when I was in Seattle. There was about 500 people in the workshop. The lady came back to the second half after lunch and she said, I can say this on camera, you're full of, and it was the S word, you know, the brown word. And she said, there you are in your $1,000 suit, your education. She said, I took 3 buses to get here to hear this. So I said to the audience, I said, do I have your permission to work with her? And they said yes. Because you see, whatever comes up is what we need to be working with at the moment. And whoever's here and listening is who needs to get this at this moment. So we began to work with her. And I said, I'm so glad you like my $1,000 suit. It looks good, huh? Come and feel it. I said, I think it costs me $50, maybe less, at Out of the Closet store that helps AIDS people. And I said, you took 3 buses. He said, I live in LA and I don't have a car. And this was shortly after I lost everything in the tsunami, which is a whole different story. And came back and my manager had totally bankrupted me to almost $1 million and I ended up homeless at 55 years old. It wasn't pretty, it was a lesson. And I said, I had to take 2 buses, a train, and another bus. Oh, and then a plane, and somebody picked me up. But when I go home with my $1,000 looking suit, I said, there's nobody to pick me up, so I'm gonna have to take 2 or 3 more buses to get home and probably walk part of the way. So then I began to share some of this story of that particular journey. I was meeting her where she's at. Y'all know that sometimes we talk at people instead of with people. I was born in 1950. I know I look good for that age. And when I was born, my mother took me to the hospital, left me there. And the summer before I was born, my mother and father were at a lake. And my father threw a snake at her and she fell. And my father's name was Charles Ratio. They called her Ratio. And she fell and she said, Ratio, don't do that. I might lose this baby. He said, I don't want this baby anyway. That's before I came here physically. But as you know, when we understand that in our consciousness, it's not just the physical consciousness that understands things, babies in the womb. Good morning, Janet. Babies in the womb understand. So when I'm born and I'm left at the hospital, my grandmother from my father's side comes and takes me. And the name that I had at the time was Stephen. Stephen Bruce Ford was my name, my birth name. And we're going to talk about childhood traumas. Okay. And now, if you want to know about names, get the tape from last week, because I talk about the value of your name. And that's such an important tape for people that don't understand their name or are going to change their name. Contact me, I'll make sure you get it. I've already had some people talk about how it's been life-changing for them. So my name is Stephen, and that was the name of a derelict alcoholic that hung around my grandfather's gas station. And Bruce was actually the name of the milkman. So I went to live with my grandparents, and I had an older brother that had a brain tumor, and his name was Charles Lee. Charles being my father's first name, Lee being my grandfather's first name. The chosen one. But because he had a brain tumor, he was paralyzed. All the attention, everything was focused on him. As a child, you don't know the reality, you only know your perception of abandonment. The abandonment of being left at the hospital, the abandonment in the home you're in. And my grandma was a gospel singer. We went to the Oral Roberts tent meetings, 10, 20,000 people in the tents. I was in a little basket on the front row. And I'm not making fun of Oral, but he sat in a folding chair like these, rolled his sleeves up, and people come by, heal, heal, heal. When I was maybe about 2-ish, I don't know why they couldn't take care of me anymore, but my mother came for me. And I went to live with her in the back of a bar. And I slept on beer kegs. And while she was entertaining her men friends for money, I collected the glasses from people to wash them. But I drank the drinks that were left over in the glasses. So at 2, maybe 3, I began to drink alcohol. Childhood trauma. I would crawl up on what I thought was a bowling machine, and up until a few years ago, I actually think that I went to sleep. I crawled up on the thing and passed out, is what the reality was. And somewhere before kindergarten-ish kind of thing, so maybe like 4-ish, she disappeared in the middle of the night. And I never saw her again. Talk about childhood trauma. So, a little bit of the story. One day she was so aggravated that you remind me of your father. Anybody ever hear that happen? You remind me so much of your father. That she took hot grease and she was going to pour it on my head. And I ducked it and went on my back instead. So there's a scar on my back, about that big. And I ended up in the hospital. And for 60, 70 years, that scar, trauma, might as well have been on my face. Why am I so ugly? Nobody will ever want me. Why am I damaged goods? And everything that goes with it. We're talking about healing childhood traumas. But I want to give you a background of understanding. So they took me away from her for a little while, and I went to live with her mother and her hippie boyfriend. The mother's hippie boyfriend. Greasy John. This is not a stretch of any imagination. They had a single car garage. You could not get in the garage because they opened the door and threw beer cans in. Grandma Mary sat in this chair. Here's the door to the garage. Here's a sliding glass door to the outside where they had a pool that had no water, and it was full of beer cans. And without going into detail, Johnny was very creative with beer bottles and various kinds of vegetables when it comes to sexual abuse. However, whether it is a childhood sexual abuse trauma or a young man masturbating and his mother walking in on it, or somebody stubbing their toe as a child, trauma is trauma. We're the ones that put the value on the trauma. Following me on this? Sure, the sexual abuse is horrific. And when you've lived it, it's even more horrific. But when you understand that trauma is trauma, period, and you understand the emotional element that goes with simple trauma, then you start undoing the trauma and healing the trauma, not the traumatic event as such. You begin to learn, coping skills. I began to work years ago with a lady by the name of Ruth Carter Stapleton, Jimmy Carter's sister. And I had never heard of inner healing at that time. My grandparents coming from the Oral Roberts Pentecostal set, we didn't do things like that. And then in my latter years, I began to work with the late John Bradshaw, homecoming, and being a parent to the child that is within you. Most of my life, I've been too afraid to die and too scared to live. When I was burnt as a child in the hospital, I said, I'll be good. Whatever they want me to do and be, I'll do and be, and I'll be good. So I lived a whole life being what you want me to be, figuring out what you want me to be, figuring out what did I want to be? The sacred contract that I came here for, the sacred gift that each of us carries within us. There was such damage. I'll tell this part. I got married at 29 in an arranged marriage. I was associate pastor of a very large church, and we were on the circuit with John Osteen, Joel's father, and I was the youngest of the group. But I got married at 29 because, as the other pastor's wife said when they called me to the office, my name was still Steve at the time, and they said, Steve, we need to talk to you. You need to start dating because people think you're gay. To me, gay was, I said, I am. Every Sunday we sing, I got good reason to be happy and gay. Lord took all my sins away. That's how naive in my bubble I was. A lot of the sexual things that had happened as a child, we develop selective amnesia. we develop ways of pretending they didn't happen. My Ivana character, the Ivana tramp, as some people call her, a female illusionist, some people call her drag queen. She was my little imaginary playmate when I was locked in the closet as a child. Locked in the closet as a child with a little pail to go to the bathroom and peanut butter sandwiches. And she would say to me, Stevie, I'm right here with you. Don't be scared, I'm right here with you. So later on, as I began to develop the female illusion person, it came from that. So when I got married, there was no sexual energy at 29. We're still talking about trauma. Teenager, 20s. No erection. I can't put it any simpler than that. No attraction. No. I would be attracted to you and the physical beauty and the way you dress. I would be attracted to you and that wonderful great shirt of yours aesthetically. I would be attracted to men in tuxedos dressed really nice and had hair put together. A woman come in and high heels and look like she just stepped out of the magazine. I'm attracted to her. None of them on the sexual level. No sexual energy. All that was wrong from the childhood. So how could I be spiritually mature in my life if I'm not emotionally mature? How could I? I quit speaking for 6 years of my life and had to be taught how to speak all over again. I told the story to one of the volunteers at DAP that we moved to Grants Pass. This family came and took me out of a trailer, and they didn't have any kids, and we moved to Grants Pass. And I said, the reason I know it's Grants Pass because the P wasn't lit up when we came into town. And I said, so that's how I knew it was, how I remember Grants Pass being, and I don't think I've been there since. And the guy's name was George. Now, back in the day, you didn't have to prove who your kids were. I remember the wife, or girlfriend, whatever she was, she took me to the school, and she says, this is our son, George Jr. He's a little slow, if you know what I mean. And of course, they put me in the back row. Nobody knows that I need glasses and can't see. They only know that I don't talk. So I'm dumb. I'm retarded. Childhood traumas. So when I talk a little later on these childhood traumas and how to move through them, yes, I read books. Yes, I've studied. Yes, I've done the workshops personally and taught them, but they don't come from that. They come from the experience of knowing what addiction can be like, to be somebody different. They know what, how do I put this tactfully? Sometimes people accuse me of slamming religion. My friend Bono says it this way: religion is what you have when the Holy Spirit has left the room. I can't say it any plainer than that. You become in the world of religiosity to cover up something. I was in Germany, and I can't give you the German phrase, but there's a phrase in German, and the phrase is, beware the shopkeeper that has religious articles in the window, for he has nothing inside. And if you really stop and think about it, there's a lot of truth to that. When somebody has something inside, you know it. This way. So I've asked Fleet to sing a song before I get into the rest of this. And each of you are holding little stuffed animals. And these little animals are yours to take home, these little, and this is the yin and the yang of you. So often we try to get rid of the shadows in our life instead of loving those parts of us that we deem unlovable or we deem as fractured. Remember anybody talks on wabi-sabi love and wabi-sabi art, how the Japanese art, you take pieces that don't fit together, you put 24-karat gold between them, and they're more valuable than they were on their own. So today, just a little introduction to this, because we can't really get into it a lot, but I bet a little bit that you know me, a little bit that we can do a little work here in a few minutes, that you're able to take a look at something that you deem not in high esteem on that other page, possible mistaken childhood beliefs, and that you are able to put your arm around yourself and able to see yourself simply in a cocoon of godness or loveness. Because I will tell you this, and I'm 100% sure on this, 100% sure. There is absolutely no healing without the presence of love. There's absolutely zero healing without the presence of love. You can quote a scripture up one day and on the other. You can do the Jewish star. You can do the rosary. You can do the Indian dance. You can do whatever it is. You can go through whatever ritual there is. You can do whatever mantra there is. If there is not the presence of love there is no healing that takes place. Period. And the only way that we create that presence of love is when we begin to realize the small s, self, and the big S, the God self. And in New Age, we say, God in us, with us, through us, as us, yada, yada, yada. And yet that's what it is. If I'm going to hush in a minute, let you sing this. Sin is when we think that we are separated from God. Sin is when I think that I'm separated from you. That is the ego mind, the small self mind. The big self, the true self, the authentic self, that God self. We say namaste. The God in me salutes the God in you. The light in me salutes the light in you. Are we really namasteing, or are we blabbing? Because if I see God in you, my behavior is different. We do the AIDS walk because we walk for people that can't walk for themselves. We walk for people that have been ostracized and still are because of stigmas of their behaviors. I'm very open now about being HIV for 40 years. 40 years in a health day. But I remember the first, oh man, I've only been open about it maybe the last 10 years. So maybe the first 30 years, I was so busy raising money, doing, so I didn't have to be, okay? Because somebody didn't see namaste. If they knew who I was, then I would have no value again. If I really knew who I was. We sometimes, people, gay men, we talk about intimacy, and we get intimacy confused with sex. Intimacy is into me see. Into me see. How can I let you see into me when I can't even see into myself? And when I learn to see into myself and I see that divine love healing all those parts, that's where the answer is. So we do the song that I'm going to finish my talk. Are you still with me?
Okay.
I pray you'll be my eyes and watch me where I go, and help me to be wise in times when I don't know. Let this be my prayer when I lose my way. Lead me to a place, guide me with your grace, to a place where I'll be safe. I pray we'll find your light and hold it in our hearts. When stars go out each night, reminds us where you are. Let this be my prayer when shadows fill my day. Lead me to a place, guide me with your grace, to a place where I'll be safe. A world where pain and sorrow will be ended. Every heart that's broken will be mended, and we'll remember we are all God's children, reaching out to touch you, reaching to the sky. I ask that life be kind and watch me from above. I hope each soul will find another soul to know. Let this be my prayer just like every child needs to find a place. Guide me with your grace. Give us faith so I'll be saved. Needs to find a place. Guide me with your grace. Give me faith so I'll be
Let me find a place. Guide me with your grace. So I saw Stephen reach for the envelope. We don't usually take it off anything, but if you decide to give something, put it in the envelope, just put it over here. I have some books, giveaway books that I brought. Little devotional books for anybody that would like to have one, day by day, emotional healthy relationships, emotional healthy spirituality, and daily office. So if anybody wants a little one, there's 4 of them here. Thank you so much. So 1 Corinthians, being a minister, you know, have to have a little verse in there. Verse, and it's in your bulletin. 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. Oh, if it were just true. Wouldn't that be great? Ladies, wouldn't that be great if you're the men in your life gave up childish ways? Men, wouldn't it be great if the men in your life gave up childish ways? Many people may chronologically be 45 years old, but remain emotional infant, child, or adolescent. How many times have you heard somebody say, come on, grow up? How do we grow up? What are the stages? And I'm just going to do 3 stages for this little opening. This isn't too much, is it, for you? Okay. Emotional infants, what that looks like. Emotional children, what those look like. And emotional adolescents. You can be 50 years old and be an emotional infant. Understand that? They look for others to take care of them. They have difficulty entering into the world of others. They are driven by need for instant gratification. You've seen the infants, they want a bottle right now. They use others as objects to meet their needs. Think about maybe an area of your own life, and think of maybe somebody that you know. In reference to those things that I put on the bulletin there for us to take a look at in our own self. Emotional children. Now the reason I know these, I've been these. And sometimes still are. Because healing is a progression. Here's the iceberg. We see the top of the iceberg. We do not see the whole picture of the iceberg underneath there. Healing and inner healing works like this. I don't believe in being a grave digger. A grave digger is somebody or something that digs and digs and digs and digs and digs in your past. And do you know what it smells like when you dig up old rotten stuff? It stinks. I love the name revivals. Revival means the inrush of the spirit into a body that threatens to become a corpse. You go to revival stores here, it's the inrush of new things and old things taken care of into a situation that could have been detrimental. Spiritually, it is the inrush of the spirit into a body that threatens to become a corpse. Emotional children are content and happy as long as they receive what they want. My. B. They unravel quickly from stress, disappointments, trials. Ready for this one? They interpret disagreements as personal offenses, are easily hurt, complain, withdraw, manipulate, take revenge, become sarcastic when they don't get their way. Hello? Have great difficulty in calmly discussing their needs and wants in a mature and loving way. That little phone is saying, yes, I've been there. And do the work not to be there. Emotional adolescents tend to often be defensive, are threatened and alarmed by criticism, keep score of what they give so they can ask for something later in return. Deal with conflict poorly, often blaming, appeasing, going to a third party, pouting, or ignoring the issue entirely. Sweep it under the rug. We can highlight that. Become preoccupied with themselves. Have great difficulty truly listening to another person's pain, disappointment, or needs, are critical and judgmental. Ouch. So how do we begin to work through this? How do we work through, I must be liked by others and be accepted to accept myself? How do we work through that? How do we work through, if others don't accept me, I'm not worthy? I thought of suicide 90% of my life until I tried it. As stupid as this may sound, I was living in the penthouse in Doheny and Sunset, had $80,000 in my checking account. I had been to a party at Liberace's for his birthday and asked for a year in LA. Had 4 fur coats and decided it was time to get off the planet. So I'd like nobody would ever want me, have nothing to offer. Because if I'm not accepted by others, I'm not worthy. And I'm not alone in this story. Must be loved and accepted by those close to you in order to be happy. Ouch. You came to this planet. You can always tell I'm going to say something very controversial because it's hard for me to get it out sometimes because I know the ramifications of it. You came to this planet as a divine spiritual being. That's who you are. You, creator, godness, loveness, okay, God, I'll call it God, partnered and made the decision how you're going to get here. What lesson is it that you're going to be learning here? And what lesson is it that they're going to be learning from you? So once you get here, you respect the way that you got here. But you don't have to be like them. Am I making sense? Sometimes you have to, the choir said amen. Sometimes, because loving yourself and growing emotionally is what we're talking about. When I changed my name, I went and I told my Pentecostal grandmother, she's the only one that was alive at that time. I said, I'm changing my name. She didn't understand. I didn't expect her to understand. However, I gave her the vocal tone and respect and the love. She did not understand, and she did not have to understand. But what she did understand was the loving and the caring. Sometimes when people don't understand us, we are the ones that withdraw our loving and our caring, and we project it on others. When we don't understand something in somebody else, we can become critical. We, the spiritual ones, we become critical and project our criticism on them to project it back to us. Because y'all know that it's not socially acceptable to beat yourself up. So you've got to bring somebody else into your life to beat you up so you can be a victim. Understand what I'm saying? You feel bad about yourself because of some trauma or some emotional part in here. So you choose the partner that's going to be the mean person. And then you can be the victim. And you don't stop there. You choose the same partner again in a different body. Oh, but you don't stop there. You choose the same partner 3 or 4 or 5 times, and you don't stop there. I had a friend of mine who lives in Spain now, and he was looking at pictures of some boyfriends, and he said, it's the same guy. I said, no, they're all different. And it brought to my mind, though, the different instances and different things. And the reason I chose different people was because I knew they had a shelf life that they would have, because there would be no commitment, because I did not understand commitment. Because guess what? An emotional infant, an emotional child. When you're emotional infant, emotional child, emotional adolescent, you cannot make a commitment. You can't expect to make a commitment. When you're in a love relationship with somebody, You can't expect them to give more than what they're capable of giving. However, when you connect, let this be my prayer. When I fall, when I fail, when I skin my face because I'm dragging on the ground, loving God, bring me back to that balance. Bring me back to that place of safety where I know that it's not about you, not about you, not about you. It's about me. It's about me. Help me stop in my tracks and take a deep breath. Because where's our breath? Our breath is our life force. You stop breathing, you're done. And if you want to be real Christian, God breathed his breath into us, became a living entity, okay? It's a Christian. So that breath that you have within you, no matter what your denomination or spiritual belief, is the God essence in you already. What do we do? What do we do, Fleet, when we get in a tight spot? Hyperventilate. Why? Why? Course in Miracles says this: if you knew who walked beside you every day on the path that you have chosen, you would never doubt or fear again. And ladies and gentlemen, I have found that to be true. I have found that to be true. What happens when I fall into the pit? You fall in the pit. Let's be real. What happens when I make big, huge mistakes? I stop, ground myself. Usually for me, I take my shoes off and socks and I stand on grass. Okay? Because when I stand on grass, the electromagnetic field in the earth that keeps turning will pull the negative energy out of my body back into the earth and cleanse it. That's a whole different talk. I stand there and I become quiet. I slow down to be with God, if you want to put it in religious terms. And I begin to do intentional breathing through the different chakras, the different energy points. And as I begin to do the intentional breathing, it's like wrapping myself around the other parts of myself, and the healing begins to take place at a deeper level. There are 3 courses in this life: love, acceptance, forgiveness. In those courses, there are many classes. Love class, love yourself, love your neighbor, love another gender, love another race, on and on and so forth. And every time we're in one of those classes, it takes us at a deeper level. And what does that do? Is to bring out the godless in you. So that when I look at you and I say, Namaste, that what I'm saying is this: I see God. I see God. I see God. Why is that so hard for people to take the step to do that? Oh, because it's it's everything but egotistical. It's recognizing who you really are. Recognizing that everything else is an illusion. So, wrapping this up, my self-worth is dependent upon what others think of me. The result of my efforts. It's nice to have good efforts, but sometimes those efforts fall through. My appearance, you all know I like a good appearance, but if it's not so good, is my self-worth going to be damaged? My knowledge? Well, you all know how smart I am already, right? You know I'm kidding there. How I compare to others. If I'm married or partnered, my professional position. Oh yeah, now I have 18 volunteers that cycle through the welcome desk. It's a high-profile position. Oh yeah, that degree hanging on my wall. Yeah, it says Reverend Dr. Watt. Oh yeah, that stuff. I feel safe only when I have a spouse, only if I have money, if I have approval, or it's special somewhere. There's a time that we live in such a godness, but that's where our safety is. Old churchy stuff was, I don't know about tomorrow, I just live from day to day, but I know who holds tomorrow. We sang in the Christian church. It was so Christian-y. But it's so true. When you know and you can sense Spirit with you, in you, as you, sense that in each other. That's when the healing begins to take place, where we don't gloss over it, where we just, hey, I'm being healed like everyone else. As I say to you, namaste. And thank you for being here with us today, and thank you for watching online.
Yes, thank you so much for joining